to everyone out there, and thank you for watching. My name is Bart Charles Begley, or BC Begley. Today is Wednesday, February the 15th of 2023, and here are today's news headlines. Starting to swirl regarding the Chinese surveillance balloon and UFOs as officials stay mum. The downing of 4 aerial devices by United States warplanes has touched off rampant misinformation about the objects, their origin, and their purpose, showing how complicated world events and a lack of information can quickly create the perfect conditions for unchecked conjecture and misinformation. The presence of mysterious objects high in the sky also doesn't help. Quote, "There will be an investigation and we will learn more, but until then, this story has created a playground for people interested in speculating or stirring the pot for their own reasons," said Jim Ludis, a former national defense analyst who now leads the Pell Center for International Relations at Salve Regina University. Quote, "In part," Ludis added, "because it feeds into so many narratives about government secrecy." United States President Joe Biden and other top Washington officials have also said very little about the repeated shootdowns, which began with a suspected Chinese spy balloon earlier this month. 3 more unidentified devices have also been shot down, with the latest happening on Sunday over Lake Huron. Pentagon officials said they posed no security threats, but have not disclosed their origins or their purpose. Inflation rose 0.5% in January, which is more than expected. Inflation turned higher to start 2023, as rising shelter, gas, and fuel prices took their toll on consumers, the Labor Department reported on Tuesday. The Consumer Price Index, which measures a broad basket of common goods and services, rose 0.5% in January, which translated to an annual gain of 6.4%. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been looking for respective increases of 0.4% and 6.2%. Excluding volatile food and energy, the core CPI increased 0.4% monthly and 5.6% from a year ago, against respective estimates of 0.3% and 5.5%. Rising shelter costs also accounted for about half of the monthly increases, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said in a report. The component accounts for more than 1/3 of the index and rose 0.7% on the month and was up 7.9% from a year ago. The CPI had risen 0.1% in December. Haley has announced that she is running for president. She's challenging former President Trump for the Republican nomination. Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor and United Nations ambassador, announced her candidacy for the President of the United States on Tuesday, becoming the first major challenger to former U.S. President Donald Trump for the 2024 Republican nomination. The announcement, delivered in a tweeted video, marks an about-face for the ex-Trump cabinet official who said 2 years ago that she wouldn't challenge her former boss for the White House in 2024. But she changed her mind in recent months, citing, among other things, the country's economic troubles and the need for, quote, generational change, a nod to the 76-year-old Trump's age. Quote, "You should know this about me. I don't put up with bullies, and when you kick back, it hurts them more if you're wearing heels," Haley said. Quote, "I'm Nikki Haley, and I'm running for president." Haley, who is 51 years old, is the first in a long line of Republicans who are expected to launch 2024 presidential campaigns in the coming months. Among them are also Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Officials in India searched the BBC offices after the Modi documentary came out. India's tax officials searched BBC offices in New Delhi and Mumbai on Tuesday, weeks after it had aired a documentary that was critical of Indian Prime Minister Modi in the United Kingdom, the broadcaster said. Rights groups and opposition politicians denounced the move by India's income tax department as an attempt to intimidate the media. The United Kingdom's publicly funded national broadcaster said it was cooperating fully with authorities and hoped, quote, to have this situation resolved as soon as possible. Late in the evening, the BBC said officials were still at the two offices. Quote, many staff have now left the building, but some have been asked to remain and are continuing to cooperate with the ongoing inquiries, it said, adding, quote, our output and journalism continues as normal. Indian tax authorities declined to comment. The tax department was looking at documents related to the BBC's business operations as its India arm, the Press Trust of India news agency reported, citing unidentified sources. A woman's decapitated head was found in a park in Paris, France. A woman's decapitated head has been found in a Paris park this Valentine's Day. Cops have tracked down other body parts, including a piece found yesterday in another park, which is one of the biggest green spaces situated in the northeast of France's capital. During a police search at 11 a.m., park staff helped cops to track down the head, local media reported. The grisly find was made in an area of woodland in the park, which is a popular location for families and joggers. Yesterday, the first body part was found in an area of secluded woodland of the park popular with families and joggers. A source close to this case said it was a woman's pelvic area. The Paris news agency reported the blood-soaked lower torso from below the chest to the knees was found yesterday, while the head was found today under a pile of foliage beside a train line. A big asteroid is set to zoom by Earth on Wednesday. A sizable space rock will make its closest approach to Earth in 4 centuries on Wednesday evening, but there's nothing to fear, scientists say. The near-Earth asteroid 2005 YY-128 will zoom within 2.8 million miles of our planet at around 7:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, closer than it's gotten to us in more than 400 years. This is according to earthsky.org. Still, that's about 12 times the distance from Earth to the moon, so there's no chance that the asteroid will hit us on this pass, according to the experts. As its name suggests, 2005 YY-128 was discovered back in 2005 by astronomers at the Kitt Peak Observatory in southern Arizona. And over the past 17 years, researchers have mapped its orbit with a high degree of precision. Michigan State University shooter Anthony McRae's past shows there was warning signs. State officials on Tuesday identified 43-year-old Anthony McRae, who had a history of mental health issues and was charged with multiple gun-related crimes in 2019 as the believed gunman, who killed 3 people and wounded 5 others at Michigan State University. McRae, who was found off campus after dying of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, was identified less than 9 hours after police lifted a campus-wide shelter-in-place order following the mass shooting. Officials with the Ewing Police Department in New Jersey said Tuesday they were told Michigan police also found a note in his backpack that indicated a threat to 2 public schools in their township where McRae had lived years ago. Michigan State University police officials confirmed a note was found on McRae. Ewing police investigated the threats and determined that McRae, quote, had a history of mental health issues. Reveal archaeological findings in Maryland that are connected to Harriet Tubman. Maryland leaders on Tuesday revealed artifacts uncovered at the site of the old Thompson Farm in Dorchester County, which is the birthplace of famed abolitionist Harriet Tubman, who led dozens of people to freedom on the Underground Railroad. At the Harriet Tubman National Underground Railroad Visitor Center, officials said the findings gave clues into who may have lived at the 19th century home and also how they may have lived. For Governor Wes Moore, it was an emotional experience. Quote, "Part of the beauty of our journey is that we can be and we should be a society that understands and appreciates our history because it's the foundation of our future," Moore said. Korea has ordered its residents with the same name as Kim Jong-un's daughter to change it. North Korean authorities reportedly are forcing residents who share the same name as Kim Jong-un's daughter, Ju-ae, to change their identities to something else. The orders are part of the regime's effort to build mystique around Kim Ju-ae, according to the South China Morning Post. She is believed to be between 9 and 10 years old. A source told Radio Free Asia that in one northern province, a security official, quote, "summoned women registered with the Resident Registration Division under the name Ju-ae to the Ministry of Safety to change their names." One of those women was a 12-year-old girl, the source says. The, quote, Ministry of Safety's Resident Registration Department called the girl's parents to the Ministry of Safety and forced them to change her name and change her birth certificate, the source told Radio Free Asia. Guardian published an article revealing the hacking and disinformation team meddling in elections from Israel. A team of Israeli contractors who claim to have manipulated more than 30 elections around the world using hacking, sabotage, and automated disinformation on social media has been exposed in a new investigation. The unit is run by Tal Hanan, a 50-year-old former Israeli Special Forces operative who now works privately using the pseudonym Jorge and appears to have been working under the radar in elections in various countries for more than 2 decades. He is being unmasked by an international consortium of journalists. Hanan and his unit, which uses the code name, quote, Team Jorge, have been exposed by undercover footage and documents that were leaked to The Guardian. Hanan did not respond to detailed questions about Team Jorge's activities and methods, but said, quote, "I deny any wrongdoing." China donations to the University of Delaware soared after the opening of the Biden Institute. A second university has been found to have received more than $6.7 million in anonymous donations from China, including direct funding from the Chinese government after U.S. President Joe Biden set up a program there in his name. This is according to a Government Accountability Institute analysis. The revelation comes following reporting that anonymous China-linked funds flowing to the University of Pennsylvania almost tripled after the inauguration of the Penn Biden Center, which illegally housed classified documents. On March 13th of 2017, less than 7 weeks after concluding his second term as vice president, President Biden announced the founding of the Biden Institute at his home state's University of Delaware. According to the announcement, part of President Biden's vision for the Institute is an annual conference at University of Delaware, which would be similar to the World Economic Forum or maybe the Aspen Institute. At the time of President Biden's announcement at University of Delaware, multiple members of the Biden family were working on deals worth millions of dollars with foreign businessmen linked to the highest levels of Chinese intelligence, and President Biden's other university program at the University of Pennsylvania was apparently housing classified documents from the Obama-Biden administration in an improper way. Evacuate and shelter in place after a toxic spill on an Arizona highway. Authorities in Arizona issued evacuation and shelter-in-place orders after a deadly crash Tuesday afternoon that led to a toxic spill near Tucson. A commercial truck carrying liquid nitric acid rolled over on Interstate 10, killing the driver and spilling the hazardous material onto the highway. This is according to a press release that was issued by the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Authorities issued an evacuation order for all residents within a half a mile of the crash site and a shelter-in-place order for those within a 1-mile radius. The interstate was also closed in both directions, the release noted. Nitric acid is a colorless liquid with yellow or red fumes and a harsh smell. Exposure can cause irritation to the eyes, skin, and mucous membrane and can be led to delayed pulmonary edema, bronchitis, pneumonitis, and dental erosion, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. TSB says videos of the Ohio train derailment include one showing a wheel bearing in its final stage of overheat failure. Investigators probing the toxic train disaster in East Palestine, Ohio, are reviewing multiple videos of the train prior to it derailing. One of the videos shows, quote, what appears to be a wheel bearing in its final stage of overheat failure moments before the derailment, the National Transportation Safety Board said in a statement on Tuesday. The suspected overheated wheel bearing has been collected and will be examined by engineers from the NTSB Materials Laboratory in Washington, D.C., the statement said. The wheel set will undergo a metallurgical examination as part of the overall investigation. Investigators will return to complete an examination of the tank cars once they are fully decontaminated, the NTSB said. Investigators have not yet determined what they believed caused the disaster. Such a determination typically takes many months. The NTSB said it is reviewing other videos too, including footage from 2 local businesses reported by local media to show glowing or flames from the train prior to the derailment. The agency is also reviewing recording data from the train's so-called black boxes, including an event recorder and image recorders. While the train carrying hazardous materials, including the toxic chemical vinyl chloride, derailed on February the 3rd, prompting evacuation orders for residents in the village of 5,000 people near the Pennsylvania border. An area crash between a truck and the Union Pacific train kills the driver and derails 20-plus rail cars. A truck driver died and several freight train cars were derailed during a Monday morning collision northeast of Houston, Texas. The crash between an 18-wheeler and a Union Pacific train occurred shortly before 7:30 a.m. Monday along Interstate 69 US 59 near its intersection with Fosteria and Midline Roads between the towns of Splendora and Cleveland. This is according to Lieutenant Troy Teller of the Splendora Police Department. He said the 21 train cars were derailed in the collision and that a hazardous materials team from Union Pacific was on the site and monitoring air quality as a precaution. Union Pacific spokesperson Robin Teisver confirmed that the hazmat crews were on the site, adding that an estimated 100 gallons of diesel fuel was released by the truck involved in the crash. Russia is delaying the launch of a rescue spacecraft after a second coolant leak issue. Officials at Russia's space agency Roscosmos have opted to delay the launch of a spacecraft meant to replace one deemed not safe enough to transport astronauts after a second vehicle, which was a cargo ship, sprang a leak on Saturday. This is according to NASA. Once cleared, the replacement spacecraft, Soyuz MS-23, will transport 3 astronauts currently stationed at the International Space Station back to Earth. The vehicle originally assigned to the mission, Soyuz MS-22, was found in December to be leaking coolant. Roscosmos was aiming to launch the MS-23 replacement capsule this month and return cosmonauts Sergei Popakov and Dmitry Petrilin and NASA astronaut Frank Rubio back home. The rescue vehicle will now launch in March, according to a post from the official Roscosmos Telegram account. The decision to delay was made after NASA confirmed that a separate Russian vehicle, a Progress spacecraft designed to carry cargo that had docked with the space station on February the 11th, also had a similar coolant leak. The strongest types of solar flares erupted on the sun. A massive solar flare erupted from the sun over the weekend, causing radio blackouts on Earth, and more could be on the horizon. The sun emitted the solar flare on Saturday, peaking around 10:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Space Weather Prediction Center. The flare, which came from a part of the sun named Active Region 3217, was designated as an X11 flare, which is one of the strongest types of flares the sun can produce. More flares from the region could be coming, the Space Weather Prediction Center predicts. Solar flares, which are giant explosions on the sun that NASA says send energy, light, and particles throughout our solar system, have a designated classification system to determine their strength. Archaeologists have found a Roman-era sarcophagus, which was uncovered in Gaza. A Roman-era sarcophagus, likely to have belonged to a prominent individual, was uncovered at the site of a 2,000-year-old Roman cemetery discovered last year in the northern Gaza Strip, the territory's Antiquities Ministry said on Tuesday. So far, 90 individual and mass graves have been found at the site, which is being supervised by a French team of experts and which was uncovered last year by construction workers on an Egyptian-funded housing project. The ministry said in a statement it believed the sarcophagus was made from lead, belonged to a high-profile figure from the era, but added it had not yet been opened. It had been put in a protective wooden container and would be subject to further study by Palestinian and international expert teams. Ministry spokesman Tariq Al-Af said opening the sarcophagus would await the arrival of an international metal expert. He said some clay jars and other belongings found in the cemetery pointed to the Roman era, around 2,000 years ago. Sturgeon unexpectedly resigned as the First Minister of Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon, the figurehead of the Scottish independence movement, dramatically announced on Wednesday that she would resign after 8 years as Scotland's first Prime Minister. The Scottish National Party leader made the announcement at a press conference in Edinburgh. She will stay in office until a new SNP leader is appointed. Sturgeon said she knows the, quote, time is now for her to stand down, adding that it is, quote, right for me, for my party, and for the country. Sturgeon said she could no longer give her full energy to the job and that she felt she must say so now. Quote, I have been wrestling with it, albeit in oscillating levels, of intensity for some weeks, the 52-year-old leader said. Quote, giving absolutely everything of yourself to this job is the only way to do it. She said it was difficult to have a private life, noting it was hard to, quote, meet friends for a coffee or go on a walk on your own, and observed that there was a, quote, brutality to the life at the top. Sturgeon added that she hoped her successor would be, quote, someone who is not subject to the same polarized opinions, fair or unfair, as I am. El Salvador is planning to open a Bitcoin embassy in Texas. El Salvador is in discussions to open a, quote, Bitcoin embassy in Texas. El Salvador's ambassador to the United States, Melina Mayorga, said on Tuesday the Central American country wishes to open a Bitcoin embassy in, quote, New Ally, Texas. Mayorga said on Twitter the embassy will aid, quote, expansion of commercial and economic exchange projects. Mayorga said following a meeting with the state's Secretary of State, Joe Esparza. El Salvador agreed to open a similar establishment in Lugano, Switzerland in October last year with the aim of encouraging adoption of Bitcoin across Europe. It can be assumed that the equivalent in Texas would have a similar aim for Bitcoin adoption within the United States. El Salvador became the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender back in 2021 and has recently approved a law that will facilitate the issuance of a Bitcoin-backed bond. New Zealand hostage pilot is appearing in photos with armed West Papua New Guinea rebels. Separatist fighters in Indonesia's rest of Papua region have released a series of images showing a pilot from New Zealand who was taken hostage more than a week ago. The photos released on Tuesday show the pilot, who is identified by local police as Philip Mertens, standing fully clothed and apparently uninjured among a group of fighters who are holding guns, bows and arrows, and other weapons. Mertens was captured after landing a commercial Saucy Air charter flight at Paro Airport in the remote highlands of Nuga Regency last week, with the West Papua Liberation Army claiming responsibility and saying it had burned his plane. The group previously demanded that all incoming flights to Paro Airport be stopped and said the pilot would not be released until the Indonesian government acknowledged Papuan independence. The TPNBP released the photos of Mertens on its Facebook page along with a statement reiterating its position. The TPNPB has admitted the responsibility for the burning of the plane and taking hostage of a Saucy Air pilot who is a citizen of New Zealand, and we keep our promise. We are politically responsible, it's said in the statement. Everybody, those were today's top news headlines of the day. As always, I will put links in the video's description to all of the articles that I have covered here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, you can share the video and leave a comment down below. And there's even more news over at my website at bcbegley.com. Go over there and check it out. And I will see you guys for even more news headlines tomorrow.